So working.
Good. Are you well also? Are you well also? No, you're good. Are you well also?
Let me turn my speakers up. Okay, I never heard any of that.
I said, I know that you're good, but are you well also?
Yes, I am well also. Yeah.
Well and truly, or just well?
I guess well and truly, yeah.
So what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Saying that you're the only one that has anything happening.
I don't believe that for 1 minute.
Don't you?
Yeah, you always duck and dive. What's happening?
Duck and dive.
Working flat out. I've, with all the changes I'd get set up and changing all my classes for October, I had to give a write-up for
changing your classes in the sense of new subject matter.
Yeah, new subject matter, new titles, dropping just about all the olds. I guess just almost everything. Okay. And they gave us 2 days to produce a schedule for October. And our schedule requires a description of the class that you're going to give, which means you've got to have researched it in order to give a description. Okay. And then they want also, besides the description, they want in point form, the points you will cover, because that goes onto the website for the reader to read. So they read the description, they read the points to cover. And then you've got to give notes that get sent to the attendee after the class. So I have, since they told me about this, which was on Friday, I've been, and Sue for that matter, we've just been, just our heads down, going through flat out. We had the option perhaps of complaining and objecting and so on. But Sue and I are the only 2 guides that have, let's call it, I have 12 lessons a week and Sue has 10 lessons a week. And every week the content changes. So it's a massive, massive work on the classes. So, we decided let's just go with the flow. Let's see what we can do. And but we had to get the October schedule out, and which we've now done. I got it out late last night, and now we are both working on, which we usually would work on a Friday, or even before that, for the coming week, because we don't have classes created for the coming week, and so I'm now sitting down doing that, and I've got 5 classes for next week that need new content. Okay, that's before we hit the October story. So still September now.
So you can't just rework your existing classes, like update them? And
no, because each of the classes, let's say Exploring Science, for example, has new content every week.
Okay.
So, yeah. Now the others, I've got 5 that need new content out of the 12. Okay, and then the balance of them are existing content from the previous week, from 1st of September, shall we say. So those are there, but the 5, they take me, anyway. lots and lots of time. Historically, in January this year, they used to take me a week to get one class completed for the month. Okay. Then I got it down to like 3 days, and now I've got it down to 1 day. But now this weekend, I've got to get it down to half a day. So the first half, I've done one class this morning. At 2 o'clock, I finished it. So now I'm working on the next class that I must get finished, and probably work through into the night, maybe through the night, to get the third one done.
Well, did you want to just focus on that tonight then?
No, I will. No, I need a break. It's absolutely fine. You know, it's one of those things. Yeah, I agree. Anyway, so that's my. It's. I sense that you know, there's a positive swerve in all of this for me with GetSetter. I think going to, you know, this is like forcing me to get ahead. So what I did when I was researching the last period of time for October, I then collected that information so that I've got a lot more information when I start building the presentations and the content for the October list. I've got all the research done now, which historically I had never done. Okay, because I tried to do generic descriptions and things like that, and they just, I don't think they worked particularly well. So now you need a description for everything that used to be generic. And what I mean was, you know, generic means, you know, I had a little paragraph saying, you know, science, blah, 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 all very fancy. Please look at the title to see what we're covering today. And then I would change the title every week. But everything that was written, and even the takeaways, were generic, which not as professional as I would like them to be. So yeah, and then, you know, Sue had a long discussion with one of her friends who's a guide now in America, and she's horrified the way we've been treated. Absolutely horrified. So they don't get treated like that, and they get paid for all the development they do regardless. Okay, and you know, they don't get stuff taken away from under their feet and told to do more and so on. So it's uniquely an Indian management thing. Whereas, anyway, so be that as it may, that's where I am at the moment. But I have a good feeling about it all. I think it's making me a lot more efficient in far as time is concerned, and I've changed my style, not consciously. It's just you know, Sue brought it to my attention. Hell, you know, when you're presenting differently to what you used to a few months ago, and that I'm you know, more with a sort of story tone to my voice, and you know, he said it's far more interesting now than it used to be. So things are changing, I think, and not anything that I've decided other than to go with the flow.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah. So, what's been on your mind? What have you been reading? What are you thinking about?
What I've been reading, I've just been continuing on with my usual. Well, I'm reading a very long book at the moment. It's called The Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth.
Called the what?
The Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth.
Okay.
but it's really I'm finding it really quite thought-provoking in that it's helping me look at things differently.
Okay.
And probably a little bit like you, teaching me more to be in flow than not.
Okay.
So things like, give you some examples, things like, when I look at something or someone like politics or something that I really quite dislike, I have to acknowledge that when I look at politics, I become what it is. So what it teaches me is that if I don't like the personalities that are dwelling in there, I've either got to change my attitude or not engage with it. So,
Yeah.
and that's sort of been a bit of an aha moment for me, because as I sort of go through my day and like if there's people that I'm having difficulty with or whatever, I just think, well, all I just say to myself, and it's not a triteness, it's got a lot of depth to it, is it's okay, well, this is who I am at the moment. So, and that helps me respond
Right.
in a much more constructive way.
You
So,
accept it.
yeah, just accept it, and if I want to move it, I know that I have to use different language and suspend feelings and stuff like that, just to work through it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's a similar experience to me, isn't it? Go with
Yeah,
go
yeah.
with yeah.
And it sort of stops the the warfare type mentality of resistance and struggling and fighting and so on. But it also had me thinking a little bit too, in a broader sense, about change at the community level, or at the global level, or at the country level, about how that happens as well. So, and it is very much, acceptance is probably one of the first things you got to come to. Acceptance of what is.
Yeah.
Which means that seeing what is clearly, rather than taking positions. That's a fundamental step. And I sort of think about like the South African experience and some of the other sort of like countrywide type of experiences, like when Gandhi in India and that sort of thing. And I sort of reflect a little bit like on Mandela and Gandhi in particular. And you think, yeah, a lot of what they were doing actually was just about bringing people to accept what is. Because until you get to that point, then there's not a whole lot you can do in terms of moving forward from it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And what do you feel about something that accepting something that is not good for you or not good, or do you just accept it, or do you fight it?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of chocolate or vanilla. I think it's just a matter of accepting it for what it is. But in terms of what you do next, you're presented with a lot more options than if you say, okay, I'm going to fight it, because that just narrows your field to focus right down to one of opposition.
Okay. So try and think of an example to give me, and I'll try and think of an example.
Oh, well, like the topical one at the moment is like, if you're opposed to the idea of receiving the vaccination.
Yeah, right. That's a good one. Yeah.
How do you work through that? So.
So what do you accept receiving it, or you just how do you deal with that? Let's say it comes up and they say, everybody in your street is going to have to be vaccinated, or you've got to go overseas and you've got to be vaccinated to fly. So you just go with the flow and accept it and get vaccinated, or
it comes down to weighing the situation up. as to what's going to be most important, because it's like anything, is when something comes along, it's not a case of, like if there's a natural disaster, you just have to accept what it is, and you just have to do the best you can through whatever it is. So with the vaccination example, if they say to me, that you won't be able to go and see your mother in the nursing home unless you have the vaccination, like they did with the flu vaccination.
Yeah.
And it's probably on the cards. And then I just have to look at it and say, well, what's most important to me? And so in that instance, I'll put myself aside to continue to see her.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Similarly, if they say to me, you need the vaccination to do the job you're doing, I'll have to think about that, because I don't know where I land on that one, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so interesting, because it's the example you used is just so topical, and something that's been in Sue and my mind, for weeks now. Okay. And
that's the direction we're being pushed. They're very clearly saying in different parts of the country, once we reach this certain threshold number of vaccinated people, then we will determine what you can and can't do next. Well, if I choose not to do it, and it means that I can't go to a restaurant, or if I can't go to not that I go that sort of stuff much anyway, but all of these sort of limitations. For me, the big ticket item would be is if you can't go to the nursing home, well, then that's a big issue for me. So,
yeah.
If it's a matter of saying, oh well, you can't go to a restaurant or to a cinema, well, hey, no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, it's so interesting, because we both of us, I think, but perhaps more so me than you, done a lot of research and reading about let's just call it as I believe it is, the poisonous vaccine. So we have no option. If we've got a visa that says you've got a condition, you've got to fly out, and you've got to be vaccinated to fly out. Okay. So now you have to agree to have the vaccine, otherwise perhaps get sent home. Okay. And that's your punishment or something like that. I don't know. Or your visa, you don't meet the conditions and you get sent home. So now you agree to be vaccinated with, let's just call it the poison, and
most likely not just once off, but probably annually thereafter.
Yeah. And knowing that it's going to have an effect on your health, or certainly on your lifestyle, and with 5G and the influence that they can use through 5G and through satellites, and you can have what's in your system now, in vaccinated, actually controlled in one way or another. We don't know too much how that control is going to be. So what we are saying here, if I look at my own example of Get Set Up now, I said definitely I just got to go with the flow, because I sense that God is guiding me, okay, with things that appear to be unavoidable, okay. So I can't apply that to some things and not to other things. Okay, so you say, fine, now I apply that to this, and I know that if I'm forced to be vaccinated, then I get vaccinated, and I know that I have protection from God in the way I move forward, and maybe the brand of vaccination that I receive, or whatever, or my body is able to deal with it in a way. That's what you're saying, isn't it? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, because as I said, it's that initial acceptance of what is, and that's not just a blind thing. It's something that you need to do consciously and actually see what's going on.
Yeah.
If we use the vaccine as a thing, like one of the things that I've sort of undertaken to myself is exactly the sort of things you've said. You look at the different options of vaccines. What's different about them. And in addition to that, also continuing to look at, and certainly, I value your guidance on some of this, is what do I need to be doing to, strengthening my immune system? Because a strong immune system, and I've actually been doing a little bit of reading on it, but a strong immune system, theoretically, you should be able to deal with the poison of a vaccine equally as efficiently as cutting my finger and it getting infected, so.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very much a case of, okay, so what do I need to do now? And that's kind of, which for me, is about, well, what are the possibilities here? Rather than, in contrast to, no, I don't accept it, I'm going to fight it. One, I think, limits the way forward, so.
Yeah.
And as you say, from a divine perspective, it's also, when you are in flow, both you and I know that, that there's a hand guiding you through that maze anyway, so.
Yeah. And the one way you can have that hand taken off you and close the door is by arguing and fighting.
Because by default you're saying I'm right.
Yeah.
Rather than what do I need to do here, which are two very, very different things.
Yeah. So that's interesting because you were listening to one of your podcasts, and I came to that decision with Get Set Up this weekend. And I think through that, you've helped me solve the vaccination issue, because I think you're spot on. We are spot on. Yeah. That's powerful. That's very powerful. That's a major breakthrough. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think you were already there.
But somehow, and maybe I would have adopted that attitude without consciously thinking about it. But now, I understand in a different way altogether and relate it to something else other than Get Set Up. Okay.
Well, I think so, but for me, it's been one of those things which has not been driven about any single issue. Like for quite some time, not that I think I have the issue, but like I sort of think to myself, well, what if you got cancer? Like a serious cancer. And you see the story over and over again. It's a battle. You've got to fight it. And I'm thinking, and I kept on thinking to myself, it just doesn't sound right. It just does not sound right.
Yeah.
Because if one of the options is you die, then I should be quite happy about that too.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think where a lot of this sort of gelled a little bit, was in. And you have to be careful because it gets fuzzy quickly, but like this voluntary assisted dying debate, which is going on around the country at the moment, but I can understand that if you're in a position of absolute helplessness, but your body just won't die.
Yeah.
But you're going through incredible pain, or you're taking so many drugs that you're not conscious to your day-to-day living, then. But I think the other side of that though is I think that I've studied and practiced enough from a spiritual perspective. If I was in that position to be able to untie the knot and just leave. I feel that, you know.
Yeah, but you would do it so it happened in a natural way,
I would do it consciously, yeah.
but you do it in a natural way.
In a natural way, that's right.
You would
Yeah.
go and drink poison or something.
No.
Yeah.
Drive off a bridge or anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think it was very much like my mother. You know, she was in the hospital, and she got to a point where she said, "Michael, I want to die." Okay, and you know, I'm giving my permission now to die. Okay, I don't know how many weeks after that, but it was weeks, and then she died. Okay.
Yeah, because she lost the will to live, in effect, didn't she? You know,
she had the will to die. I think that was it, and we had moved her from a very uncaring old age home or old age hospital to a Roman Catholic nurses one, where they were so much kinder and nicer and so on. And so she was that relaxed her quite a lot, and so.
But in one sense, though, it doesn't matter whether it's an annoying buzz of a mosquito or a charging elephant. The same principles apply, don't they? You know.
Yeah, they do.
And I think that's part of the spiritual precision that we practice. You know, that if it's an annoying mosquito, fine, that's a lot easier in one sense to handle than maybe a charging elephant. But in reality, they're both the same. You know. So.
Yeah. The one you're happy to kill, the other one you can't. Yeah, I usually club them, mosquitoes, and say, "Okay, enjoy your journey to God." Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's and I think a lot of that's just that awareness of the environment in which you live, which ironically has been. I was again challenged this week about the environment in which we live, because I sent you that little video thing of that guy on the crypto stuff, but I had a long conversation again with my eldest son about a lot of this crypto and related type stuff. And I'm racking my brain just to think of the term that he used. But anyway, it says now that virtual products are the big investment thing.
Yeah.
And I said to him, "What do you mean virtual products?" He says, "Oh, well, like a virtual piece of artwork." And I said, "Well, how do you make that unique?" He says, "Oh, they've got the technology now to give it a digital signature, which is unique."
Yeah. Was it in that video, or did I read it somewhere else?
It might have been mentioned in there, I think.
I know that it's familiar in my head now.
And I forget the term they use. They call it I keep on thinking of NDS, but NDPs or something. I'm not anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of thinking, and he said, "Oh yeah, and they've got virtual real estate, and they've got." And I said, "Well, hang on a minute. So what you're saying is because two things came to mind for me. One was these are kids who've been playing computer games, and that's now their new reality." He says, "Oh yeah," he says, it's all about scarcity.
All about what?
Scarcity.
Scarcity, yeah.
And he said, so it's the same as like, oh, we're going to build a new virtual city. And if you're going to be an early investor in it, then you'll have choices about location and proximity and size and all that sort of stuff, and it'll all be unique because it'll all be digitally signed, and you'll be the owner of it, and you can trade in these commodities and stuff like that. And I'm saying, but it's not real.
What does he mean by estate agent? I mean, how do you relate that to, let's say, the house you live in or the house you buy?
Well, this is the thing, and this is the thing that I struggled a lot to get my head around. And I said, like this is a real thing, is it? Like, people are doing this now. He said, yeah. He said, one of my friends has, he said, there's this game. It's like a game. He says, but the game is like built on the same principles as if it was a living, breathing thing. And basically he's got, but he had 5 horses, 5 digital horses, and he recently sold 2 of them for $5,000 each.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I'm having trouble comprehending this, because to me it just sounds like a fantasy. It's not even something in another dimension. It's just something that someone's created, and they've built some uniqueness around it because it can have a digital signature which makes it unique, and therefore it becomes a tradable commodity. I said, yeah, that's pretty much kind of how it works.
Okay. This afternoon I was researching and I came across an AI. The AI's name is ADA, AI-DA. Okay, and it has been, I don't know how to say, trained, or what it does, and I saw it on the internet. Okay, it painted a self-portrait.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and she painted an image of a woman. Okay, and with distinct features and face and hair and so on. Okay, and when you see the AI standing in front of the portrait, I mean, you can see the AI's got, mechanical arms and things that doesn't have any skin and so on and so on. But there you see this image of this woman. Okay, and I thought, and there's a debate going on. Okay, as I guess is going on in your mind now with what your son was saying. And the debate is, can you call what the AI is doing art? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I then sat back and I added in my mind to that conversation. I said, can you call the AI itself art?
Mm-hmm.
Or is what it draws art? Or are they both art?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I actually brought that into my class that I was researching for. And now that AI has had an exhibition of its art, okay, and its very first picture that it painted before it did the self-portrait, it was sold for $5,000. Okay. Now, okay, so the designer, I assume, of the AI gets the $5,000. I don't know, but does it belong to that person? Okay, or does it actually belong to the AI? And the AI has also been interviewed on the what's a text show, where they interview people on the stage. Text, is it dead text or you know which one I mean?
TEDx.
TEDx, yeah, TED.
Yeah.
and he was the AI was interviewed on the show. Okay, so it's able to speak. It speaks in a female voice. Sorry, Sue just wants to talk to me a minute.
Talking dogs.
Okay, that's fine.
That's
okay.
what I was trying to say without talking.
Oh, I see. Okay, you haven't heard from Kerry yet.
No, it's 9 centimeters.
Okay,
waiting to
but
drop.
she hasn't given birth yet.
Not yet.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Not yet.
Sorry, Kerry, my daughter's almost about to give birth.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
That's probably it.
Okay. Yeah. So it can talk, and it's I guess programmed to have a female voice and to pretend it's female. So it can answer questions. It can paint, and where is that leading us to? Okay, it's all very well for somebody to start having a discussion about whether something is art or not. Okay, but what about the AI painter and person who can have a conversation and can you must really Google it and just Google the name. I'm sure the AI stroke DA will come up, but it's an interesting debate. It's an interesting debate. Yeah.
You know, because I mean, the first, or not the first, but one of the things that came to my mind is like, well, you know, what does that mean for me? You know, like, which takes me down the path of, you know, well, who am I and what is all of this around me and that sort of thing as well. And it's a lot to absorb.
Yeah, I mean, if you take it in your own profession or your own hobby, you know, of woodwork and restoration and so on. You know, it's clearly heading in that direction.
Well, it is. It's almost like a Matrix type scenario, isn't it? Where the technology, you know, creates a life support system, and everything else beyond that, you know, is some form of consciousness. You know, and I guess that's the fundamental question: is it conscious? You know, is it conscious? I don't know.
Yeah. Because scientists now have created a fifth dimension, and you know, with quantum physics or quantum computers, you know, that also now, you know, it's mind-boggling when you think about it. And where is that?
You know, is a smart program conscious? I know a smart program can learn, but does that make it conscious?
Yeah.
Is it aware of itself? I don't know.
Yeah. I think what we're going to have to do is talk about spiritual consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, then there's no way, because spiritual consciousness is the soul connecting to the Creator, and the best that an AI could ever, as far as I'm concerned, it would be have a connection to its programmer.
You would think so, wouldn't it? But the other thing, in the more fundamental sense for me, was like, and he's just saying, oh, you know, this is like a next evolution of commerce and economics and that, you know. Yeah, but I'm not that interested in that. I live a simple life. I'm happy with my connection with the earth, and you know, and unless, you know, something comes down from the heavens and says this is an artificial intelligence, by the way, then I accept it as being my creator, you know. So
yeah. That brings me to think about one of the classes that I had to rush through for October was the psychological effect of plants. Okay. And Now that is so for me so interesting, because there is a connection now, with God, okay, through the plants, and it's been, here we go again, it's scientifically proven, and in Australia as well, in Australian University, from my research this weekend, is that large percentage of healings have taken place with people that have 5 or more plants in their room. Okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
Whatever, okay. And particularly from things like depression and but other things as well.
Well, the Japanese, have been doing it for hundreds of years. They have a term for it. Like they call it forest bathing, where you go for a walk in the forest.
Yes,
and also, the nature of the gardens that they build, and they're built, they're built consciously, but their physical and psychological impacts are profound. So.
And profound is the word from, I mean, obviously, you and I have been doing it for years. I mean, I work in the garden, I talk to my garden, I plant things, and I go barefoot in the garden. So, I'm sort of aware that it's good for me, it's healthy for me, I feel good afterwards, and so on. So it all sort of gels. But now to get this subject, and the word psychological benefits, okay, sort of intrigued me, and so yeah, and to think that there are scientists and universities that have got proof of it.
And it's always been something that I've sort of posed the question to myself and to a couple of others actually over the years, is when you say, as a gardener, who tends who? Do I tend the garden, or does the garden tend me?
It's both ways, without a doubt. It's both ways. Yeah. It's same with animals, isn't it? Your dog,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So.
And again, that's not speculation. That's scientific proof. That. There's rescue animals and things like that they call them. That when someone's had, particularly war trauma and stuff like that, their pathway back is normally with the assistance of an animal. So.
Yeah. And traumatized animals are usually brought back to health with the care of a human.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, so it's an expansive way to think anyway. But I sort of think about a lot of this, and I suppose I've got to step back, like the time frames that I think they were talking about with some of the technology impacts, that they forecast could well be, a couple of 100 years or something. But notwithstanding that, here and now where we are, and not having complete knowledge about what technology is actually there here and now, because we've talked about that as well, that, there'd be all sorts of new technologies will probably just, start to emerge as so-called discoveries. But, so how much of that is there right now? You don't know. But in one sense, though, it made me a little sad, and I had to sort of have to be careful about how I felt, but it made me a little sad because I just sort of saw a lot of this, this virtual property and so on is just a further step away from the connection with our planet, So.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where the super rich or whatever want it to go. They want to create this sort of matrix type environment where it's a manufactured reality, I don't know. Maybe that's their ultimate form of control. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because where else are they going to go?
Yeah. Thought-provoking.
kind of seems to be underpinned by a sense of fear of dying, though, doesn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, Bezos, I saw a headline flash past on my phone. He's puts X amount of money into getting people to research living longer. He wants to live longer, much longer. You're right. It's a fear of death. And ignorance of what happens after death.
Yeah.
So he fears it. Yeah.
Well, he wants to take his position in the fish pond with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just a denial of you come with nothing and you leave with nothing, you know. So
yeah.
So he's trying to control the future from beyond the grave. How many people have tried to do that? You know.
That's also interesting what you've just said, because also you must just bear with me because I've done so much research this weekend already. This was for one of the mystery classes, and I read the story where this woman was murdered and put under a mattress, and the mattress set on fire and so on, and they couldn't find the murderer. Absolutely couldn't find the murderer. There was, and then years went by, and eventually somebody came forward and who was a friend of the woman, and said she's been having these images or things of her friend, okay, and her friend's like trying to talk to her. So they decided to do a seance and so on, and they got the woman on the other side, and she described exactly what happened, who killed her, and where the jewelry that was stolen, where it is now, and who's wearing it now. Okay, so they took the thing to the cops, and they, shrugged their shoulders, said, "But all right, we'll follow it up." And they found the jewelry with the person that was wearing it. Okay, and that then led to how that person got the jewelry, and they led them to the murderer, and he instead of 25 years, he got 15 years because the judge said, this is rather weird. Okay, all the evidence is coming from there, but we found, he definitely murdered them. So interesting that you can now, I mean, we know I've always been skeptical about these seances, okay, and about this connection. But when you get something like that, you think, okay, so that person has died and is still very much attached to our dimension. Okay. So, yeah.
Well, what it kind of points to, though, as well, isn't it, is that everything that's created there's a record of it, So
yeah,
like nothing disappears as such,
Sure, absolutely nothing, and they're Akashic records. Anyway,
might be a good place for you to stop, seeing that you've got a daughter who's about to give you some wonderful news, I'm sure. So
yeah, I got that coming, and I've got granddaughter arrived, and we need to have a talk to her, serious talk. But I'll tell you about that another time when there are no eavesdroppers.
no worries. Okay then. You take care. I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Okay, great conversation.
Okay, bye now.